Have you ever felt it? That moment when someone says just one thing and suddenly your entire body tenses up. Your heart races, heat floods your face, and in an instant, you're no longer yourself. You become smaller, angrier, exactly what they wanted you to become. One word, one glance, one dismissive tone, and you lose your center. But here's what most people don't understand. When a toxic person makes you lose your composure, they're not actually attacking you. They're awakening something in you, something Carl Jung called the shadow. And once you understand this mechanism, everything changes. Because the real battle was never with them. It was always with the part of yourself you haven't yet faced. By the end of this video, you'll have 4 powerful practices that will transform how you respond to toxic people. Not by fighting harder, not by being tougher, but by becoming so grounded in yourself that their attacks simply fall away like rain on stone. Stay until the end, because the 4th practice is the one that changes everything. It's where awakening meets action, where understanding becomes unshakable peace. So who are toxic people, really? They're not always the obvious villains. Sometimes they're the colleague who smiles while undermining you in meetings, the friend who disguises cruelty as humor, the family member who makes you feel guilty for simply living your own life. Carl Jung, one of the most profound psychologists of the 20th century, understood something that most people miss. Toxic people aren't just difficult personalities. They're mirrors. Mirrors reflecting back the parts of ourselves we've refused to see. Jung called this the shadow. It's not evil. It's simply everything we don't want to admit about ourselves. Our fear of being powerless, our need for control, our terror of being unloved, our shame about not being enough. When we're unconscious of these parts, they don't disappear. They get projected outward. We see them in others instead of in ourselves. And toxic people, they live almost entirely in projection. They're unaware that they're being driven by their own unhealed wounds. Think about someone who constantly criticizes others for being weak. What are they really doing? They're running from their own fear of being seen as useless. Someone who always blames others is hiding from a deep shame about their own powerlessness. The manipulator who uses guilt to control you? They've never felt unconditionally loved, so they try to extract it through force. They're not bad people in a moral sense. They're suffering people in a psychological sense. But because they can't face that pain, they throw it onto you. They make you the mirror reflecting their distortions. And if you're not awake enough, you'll get pulled into that vortex. You start doubting yourself. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm not good enough. You try to prove yourself, to explain, to make them understand. But the more you try, the more you lose yourself. You're living in the story they created to escape their own shadow. Here's the profound truth Jung discovered. Every toxic person who enters your life is showing you something about yourself that you haven't fully understood yet. They don't come only to hurt you. They come to provoke awakening. But, and this is critical, that doesn't mean you have to tolerate them. Jung never advocated enduring abuse. He simply pointed out that if you don't recognize your own shadow, you'll keep attracting people who carry that shadow to you. Let me show you how this works. Imagine a woman who keeps falling into relationships with controlling men. They're jealous, they command, they make her feel wrong even when she's right. She thinks she just has bad luck with men. Toxic people keep finding her. But she doesn't realize she's carrying a shadow too. A fear of losing control, a terror of being hurt, a belief that being weak is dangerous. So unconsciously, she chooses men who control her because deep down, she believes being controlled is safer than facing her own vulnerability. This is the unconscious loop. 2 shadows talking to each other, and the real selves of both people have completely vanished. Think about the last time you argued with a toxic person. Whether you won or lost, how did you feel afterward? Exhausted, empty, like you gave away your energy and got nothing back. That's because when you react to toxicity with the same energy, you become part of the loop. Two mirrors facing each other. No light gets through, only endless, distorted reflections. The moment you fight back unconsciously, you've already lost. Not because they defeated you, but because you abandoned yourself. But there's another way. What if instead of asking, "How do I defeat them?" you asked, "What in me is reacting right now?" That shift, that single question, is where real power begins. Not the power to control them, the power to master yourself. And that's exactly what these 4 practices will teach you. Not how to fight toxic people, but how to become so whole within yourself that their attacks can no longer reach you. Because the truth is, they can only hurt you where you're already wounded. So let's heal those wounds. Let's bring your shadow into the light, and let's discover what it means to respect yourself so deeply that no one can take it from you. Here's the first practice. Practice number 1. The 3-second pause. When someone attacks you, something ancient inside you takes over. Your nervous system doesn't know the difference between a verbal insult and a physical threat. Fight or flight kicks in instantly. And in that moment, your shadow is in control. Imagine you're in a meeting. A colleague publicly criticizes your idea in front of everyone. Your face flushes, your heart pounds. Sharp retorts flood your mind, ready to fire back. Right there, in that heated moment, you have a choice. Most people react immediately. They defend, they attack, they prove. But here's what Jung understood. That instinctual reaction isn't you. It's your shadow speaking. So here's the practice. The next time you feel that surge, count to 3. Literally count in your head. 1, 2, 3. In those 3 seconds, breathe deeply. Feel the anger in your body. Notice it like you'd notice a flame. But here's the key. You're observing the flame, not burning in it. This is the gap between stimulus and response. And in that gap lives your freedom. After the encounter, open your journal and write. Today, when they said this, I felt. Write it all, the rage, the hurt, the injustice. Not to complain, but to illuminate. When you transform emotion into words, you bring the shadow into light, and light dissolves shadow. There's an advanced version of this practice Jung called active imagination. Close your eyes and visualize your angry part as if it's sitting in front of you. Say to it, I see you. I know you want revenge. I know you feel hurt, but I'm not letting you drive this ship. This isn't denying your anger. It's recognizing it without being consumed by it. And that recognition? That's the first step to freedom. Practice number 2, the glass wall. Words only hurt when they pierce your identity. When someone says you're useless, it only wounds you if somewhere deep inside you fear they might be right. Jung distinguished between the ego and the true self. The ego wants recognition, wants to be right, wants to be loved. The true self only wants to be understood. And your task is not to protect the ego, but to return to the self, where attacks cannot reach. Here's how you practice this. The next time someone criticizes you, imagine a transparent glass wall between you and them. Their words echo. You hear them clearly, but they hit that glass and fall away. You're seeing, you're acknowledging, but you're not absorbing. This is called non-identification awareness. But here's the deeper work. When someone insults you, ask yourself, is there a part of me that believes this? If the answer is yes, don't hate that part. That's usually your inner child speaking, the one who was criticized, who felt not good enough, who believed love had to be earned. Talk to that part. I see you. I know you're scared, but we're grown now. We are enough. When you heal the part of you that believes not enough, external attacks lose their power, because no one can hurt you with words if there's no wound for them to touch. Try this. The next time emotions surge after an attack, close your eyes. Imagine you're watching a movie. You see two characters, you and them, in conversation. But you're not attached to either character. You're just the observer. As the observer, you're no longer offended. You see the entire situation as a psychological dance, not a personal assault. And just doing this for a few minutes, your body relaxes, your mind clears. You've stepped out of the role and returned to yourself. And here's the truth that sets you free. No one has the right to define your worth except you. When you absorb this deeply, every attack becomes a distant echo. You can hear without being hurt. You can see without being swept away. Practice number 3. Break the mirror. This is where it gets powerful, because understanding yourself is only half the journey. The other half is refusing to reflect their toxicity back to them. Jung called this the law of psychological mirroring. When you react with the same energy someone attacks you with, you create a loop. Two shadows talking to each other. Two mirrors facing each other, endlessly reflecting distortion. Here's how it plays out. Someone walks into your office in the morning and says mockingly, "Probably late again because you were busy staring in the mirror, huh?" The old response, "Better than arriving early with nothing to do." You might feel momentary satisfaction, but that feeling quickly turns heavy because you just entered their game. The new response, pause, look them in the eye, smile softly. "You look tired today. Hope everything's okay." Then turn away. No anger, no sarcasm. You just refuse to play. And here's what happens. The toxic person has nothing to grab onto. You gave them no foothold. The mirror loop is broken. But there's something deeper here. Something Jung called conscious compassion. When someone constantly belittles others, they were likely belittled themselves. When someone always needs to win, they carry a childhood fear of losing. When you see the pain behind the behavior, hatred dissolves. Not because you're justifying them, but because you understand the mechanism. They're in pain. And pain creates pain until someone is conscious enough to stop the cycle. This doesn't make you weak. It's the highest form of self-respect, because it requires you to be strong enough not to be poisoned. When you speak, speak from the self, not the ego. Not, "Don't talk to me like that," but rather, "I won't continue this conversation while the tone remains like this." Clear, calm, decisive, no hatred. Just a boundary held in stillness. The wall of mirrors collapses when you refuse to throw back the brick they hurled. And this brings us to practice number 4. Sacred boundaries. Setting a boundary is not an act of opposition. It's an act of consciousness. Most people think boundaries are about the other person. How do I make them stop? But boundaries actually begin with a different question. What in me needs protection? Jung saw this clearly. Your soul is like a house. Everyone who enters brings their energy, their mood, their needs. If you don't know how to lock the door, people will come and go as they please, leaving chaos behind them. Setting boundaries is learning to master that door. Who is invited? Who isn't? And under what conditions can they stay? Not to isolate yourself, but to keep your house, yourself, from being disturbed. Here's why most people don't set boundaries. Fear. Fear of being hated. Fear of being seen as selfish. Fear of losing love. But these fears mean you're still living in what Jung called the persona, the social mask you wear to be accepted. The one who's individuating removes that mask. They understand that real love doesn't require you to trade yourself away. Setting boundaries is actually a declaration of individuation. It says, I no longer live for others' acceptance. I live to honor my soul. Each time you say no to what hurts you, you're saying yes to your true self. And that's the whole point of the journey Jung described. To become who you truly are. Here's a practical exercise. Write down 3 energy boundaries. Read them every morning. I have the right to leave conversations that make me feel small. I don't need to justify my need to rest. I'm allowed to disappoint others if it means being honest with myself. These aren't just statements. They're commitments to your essence. And here's the secret about boundaries. They're not set with words alone. They're set with energy. When you say, "I don't want to talk about that," but inside you're trembling with fear, people will push harder. When you say the same sentence with a heart steady as stone, they'll stop. Because boundaries held in stillness are automatically respected. You don't need to shout. You don't need to explain. True boundaries don't need to be understood. They only need to be felt. And that steady energy, it comes from somewhere deeper. It comes from the final practice, the one that completes everything we've been building toward. And now we arrive at the final practice, the one that Jung recognized as the mark of someone who has truly integrated their shadow, the power of silence. Not the silence of suppression, not the silence of defeat, but the silence of someone who no longer needs to prove anything to anyone. When you've recognized your shadow, separated your identity from attacks, refused to mirror toxicity, and established sacred boundaries, something shifts. You no longer feel compelled to react. You've moved from being unconscious to being awake, and awakeness doesn't need to speak. Let me tell you a Zen story that captures this perfectly. A student went to his master and said, "Master, I have been insulted. What should I do to make that person understand they are wrong?" The master smiled and asked, "If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The student thought for a moment and said, "It still belongs to the giver." The master nodded. So it is with insults. This is what silence does. When you don't accept the toxic gift being offered, it remains with the person who tried to give it. It never enters you. It never becomes yours. Imagine sitting in a room with someone who's attacking you. Their words are sharp as knives. Their tone is dripping with contempt. Normally, your blood would boil. You'd want to defend, to explain, to win. But this time, you just listen. You look them in the eye, you breathe deeply, and you choose silence. Not because you have nothing to say, but because you understand that every battle requires two participants, and you're no longer interested in participating. In that moment, you don't lose, you transcend. Because here's what toxic people really want: your energy. They want you to react. They need you to engage so they can feel powerful, so they can avoid their own pain. When you give them silence instead, you've withdrawn the very thing they were trying to steal. You've kept your energy for yourself. And something miraculous happens in that silence. You begin to hear your own voice, not the reactive voice of the shadow, not the defensive voice of the ego, but the quiet, steady voice of your true self. That voice tells you what you really feel, what you really need, where you really want to go. And you can only hear it when you stop filling the space with reactions. Jung understood this deeply. He saw silence not as emptiness, but as fullness. The one who has integrated their shadow doesn't become silent because they're weak. They become silent because they're whole. And in that wholeness, presence is enough. They don't need to win. They don't need to be understood. They don't need validation. They simply are. The toxic person might get angrier when you choose silence. They might escalate, provoke harder, try to pull you back into the fight. And that very reaction confirms you're on the right path. Because they can no longer control you, and people who live in their shadow cannot tolerate not having control. But you remain still, like the surface of a deep lake. The wind rises, but the water doesn't lose its calm. That stillness isn't avoidance. It's strength, the strength of an inner world that has been forged through understanding. This is the completion of the journey Jung described. You've brought the shadow into consciousness. You've stopped identifying with the attacks. You've refused to become what you despise. You've set boundaries that honor your soul. And now, you rest in silence, the silence of someone who knows who they are. So here's what I want you to understand. Self-respect doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It doesn't arrive in one dramatic moment. It accumulates quietly, in small choices. A breath that slows down when you want to explode. A pause before reacting. A step away from a conversation that dishonors you. And then one day, you realize something profound. Toxic people no longer have the right to name you. They can say what they want. They can project their wounds. They can try to make you small. But their words fall away like rain on stone. Because you're standing in your own light now, and that light is non-negotiable. Self-respect becomes a field of stillness around you, clear, solid, unshakable. Noise no longer throws you off rhythm. Shadow no longer leads you astray. You've returned home, to the place where you were always meant to stand. At your center, in your essence, complete. And from that place, you realize the truth Jung spent his entire life trying to show us. The journey was never about defeating toxic people. It was about becoming whole enough that their toxicity simply has nowhere to land. So I want to ask you, which practice will you try first? The 3-second pause, the glass wall, breaking the mirror, sacred boundaries, or the power of silence? Choose one. Just one. And practice it this week, and then come back and tell us what happened. Not to share a story, but to prove to yourself and others that awakening is real, that humans can rise above hurt through consciousness alone. Because sometimes, one honest account from you is enough to give someone else the courage to stand still in their storm. You're not alone in this. We're all learning to hold our ground, to honor our souls, to respect ourselves so deeply that no one can take it from us. And if this video helped you see toxic people differently, if it gave you even one tool to reclaim your peace, leave a like. Subscribe. Not for the algorithm, but as a commitment to your own awakening. Because the world doesn't need more people who know how to fight back harder. It needs more people who know how to stay whole. And now, you're one of them.